streaming from my place, sort of my place a little bit. So thank you for watching. And I also firstly want to appreciate of what happened in Israel and Gaza conflict now, that hostages has been released. That is good news. And I think um, President Trump keeps on producing results after results after results, the kind of results that hasn't been seen in a long time by governments. Governments just don't hit milestones like that anymore recently. And people like people like Donald Trump is like really the kind of government you would want to go, because in the past, I think in the times of war, everyone's having a hard time, and not really, like, a lot of people are not rich, and even good people are not rich. But eventually, over time, as time develops, eventually people who are like really, um, like Jesus say, judge by the results, right? If your results, if you ended up helping a lot of people, logically speaking, like, you would have a lot of money, because that's how the economy is designed. I'm not saying that people who don't have money are bad people. It happens that like in Jesus, like Jesus was not, um, in his time on earth, didn't end up as the king of kings of the earth, but the earth rejected it. It's just the nature of reality. But you know it is sometimes like Jesus also said, right, judge by results, right? And like, you can check out people, like, I mean, people deliver results. And just because the economy is not perfect enough, therefore the rewarding system is not really good enough, it doesn't mean, like, exceptions rather than the rule thing. You shouldn't be a communist. You shouldn't side on the virtue of poor people. You know what I mean? Like, if you are poor, you are a good person, and I think that is crazy. But also, I think you should side on people who experiences injustice, right? And that is, you got to make a distinction, because there are poor people who are evil, like they would destroy your assets and stuff and feel no remorse, and people like that. And so I think, if you want a leader, I mean, it is unfortunate that bad things happen to people, to good people. But if the good people are being afflicted, it doesn't automatically mean that the good person is going to be competent for leadership. And we just got to acknowledge that just because we empathize with people who are miserable and who is good, it doesn't mean that misery has destroyed his ability or his potential, some of his potential to lead. It is very unfortunate, it's tragic, but you got to understand the reality. But there are a lot of people still that are not like that, and that is the kind of people you would want to um, hail up as the spearhead, so that less and less injustice would be experienced in the future. And then I'm talking about, I also was thinking about Nemesis in Resident Evil, right? And I think I draw the line. I saw a content creator made a review uh, about a show in Netflix about Norse mythology, and then it has some content that is talking about Jesus Christ as well. Like, ultimately in a realistic manner, and also in a tragical manner, not tragic to Jesus Christ, but tragic to the Norse gods, Norse system, belief system. And I think it is interesting. And I think and also it reinforces my sentiment that Christianity is actually intense. People who try to make art from Christian lore fail to compete because it is just we, including myself, is not able to, it's not deciphering it enough. Oh, there's an insect here. So you gotta break it up in a very small chunks, and then you will see that it is rich and it's interesting. Because if you jam in a lot too much information, it's going to be boring because people are not processing it. There's so many stuff and so intense in such a small kind of opening, so it's a bottleneck. So I think, as a Christian, I think there are a lot of potential in the Bible story. So back to Nemesis from Square Enix, right? In Resident Evil, Nemesis is like, it's like it represents how how evil chain human beings. All right. So imagine, long time ago, God created this venture called the physical world and the physics as we know it, right? And some managers decided to go rogue, okay? But these managers are not fired, because they violated like they acted in ways that are unpleasant to the authority, because they have an excuse, right? They are torturing human beings, who is the real reason why the physical things exist. It's like, it's for the human beings to be the face of God in the creation. That is the lore of Christianity, right? But these managers torture human beings and got a good legal standing, right? Because God is like, a huge part of God is order, and God is the creator who brings order from chaos, right? So, legally speaking, the managers can torture human beings and say that they are not bad, right? When Jesus came, the system that has been extrapolated over time, right? It's not, even though the devil himself already see what is happening, the devil himself just don't suppress its system that is like treating the human being with contempt, meaning bringing in suffering, bringing in gatekeeping, I guess, and bringing destroying human beings' potentials. And in terms of Jesus Christ, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that to him, but it applies anyway. So, and God knew about this. Jesus Christ knew about this. If you stand up to your principle, right, and you're gonna have a backlash. It's like Isaac Newton's theory. Like, if when you apply a force to a direction, to a object, it will retaliate it in the direction it comes from, right? It doesn't, uh, there's a cost to change a momentum, I guess, right? And what was the connection I'm trying to say? So, ultimately, uh, how Nemesis in Resident Evil is a very nice portrayal of how human beings are shackled, is because this evil is putting our talents and potentials here and there, like Frankenstein monster, right? And it's putting things the way it is not supposed to be. Frankenstein's also is a good example. So we are chained to to a system that doesn't belong, where we doesn't belong. Like for example, you are an artist. Instead of working in a for artistic venture, you are forced, or you are contractually compelled to use your artistry for the things that are wrong. For example, for scamming corporation. So that in another dimension, if you portray that to another dimension, it's like a monster, Frankenstein monster, where everything that is wrong being chained together. So your talent to as an engineer is being chained by other people's talent as a doctor, and together you create an unethical virus, that is an unethical virus bioweapon that is mechanically used to attack the enemy, with with like massive collateral damage and something like that. And it is like it's like a Frankenstein doesn't belong, being chained together and being absorbed together. And it is said the death of Jesus Christ at last, unchained those things, and sort of put things into place, right? Put things in the way God created it. God is love. So what's the connection of managers and corporations is that things like that, like this manager doesn't have good intention, right? But what he did is justifiable because the evil of the people that is working there, the people that is working there are not adults. They're like kids that are causing problems, and this manager is justified in its evil intent, in its malicious behavior. It's justified because it's being inflicted upon people who's going to cause unsustainable issues, but not Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ came to the world, these managers shouldn't apply that to him, but they applied it anyway, and therefore they are no longer, even in the past, all of their behaviors in the past can be arguments be brought about to them, being saying that look, originally it is not acted with good intent. It has been proven that Jesus Christ's potential is being suppressed by some of the powers of the world, and therefore the wielder of this power has solidified their contempt against God, right? And that is like they are no longer have the right to God's economy. But why is it that they are still powerful? Jesus have already explained that in the parable of the harvest, right? When you harvest the grain together with the wheat, because if you destroy the wheat early on, the grain is going to be destroyed with it together. And in Paul, he's talking about the destruction of the universe and that it is good. So it's pretty controversial. So I play Final Fantasy Tactics. I have another channel that I created to showcase the game and me playing it. And throughout the game, they also talk about some evil, some religious influence that's actually portrayed as evil because it's trying to transform the universe from its roots, right? And it's the difference between good and evil in its intent to destroy the world is that good is not trying to do things that are unjust, right? For example, you create a dam for power supply, right? That is changing the nature, right? That is unnatural. And some may argue that the dam changes the whole ecosystem. But the most important part is that there are hungry people and there are people who are without power experiencing diseases, and hospitals cannot run as well. So that dam actually contributed to good, and that is changing the nature, and that is like something that is like destroying the old world for the sake of good that is justified in my opinion. And like the demonic changes is like when you destroyed a forest for profit, for example, just for profit without, or you pollute the river, for example, for chemistry, without any regard of current human lives. And that is not just. That is like not considering justice as a priority. And which brings me to the question, right? Which brings me to the issue that how powerful is God? Because if God can create a boulder that cannot be moved, and God cannot move it, that means God is not omnipotent. And that is why some people say the quantum physics is like the age of the truth, the age of the universe. Like the physicists have managed to reach the end of the universe and see what's beyond it. So what that statement saying is that that boulder that cannot be moved, in reality it can be moved by God, and there's a reality where God doesn't remove that boulder. So both are true. And like it manifests in the form of quantum physics, and that is when quantum physics will usher in the next creation, right? Because when you figure out how quantum physics works and then you use it to your own advantage, I think that is building, expanding the universe. That is an expansion of the universe. And then I think, so if you, like, for sure, always, even though through uh, quantum mechanics, you still produce the same result as intended originally. Now you have, like, advanced the physics itself. It's definitely have been advanced if you've managed to mathematically possibly do that. But I am not saying, right, that God himself cannot perform quantum physics, and therefore human beings have done something that God cannot do himself. I am not saying that. Maybe God already know from a long time ago. Um, but what I'm saying is that why we are here as a human being is that, so that we can make God truly omnipotent, the kind of God where through us, living through us, God can move the boulder while the boulder is still immovable, and it is not a lie, and it is logical, and it is the truth. But again, it works, but it is not a lie. Okay, it doesn't produce evil, it doesn't produce suffering, and it is lovely. But it's not logical for now. It doesn't make sense for now, I know. But that's just like, why do God need suffering? Why do God need, like, evil manager, even though it is legal? Like, why is it that the snake is in the garden? Like, what happened here? Why do God incorporate punishment and vengeance, right? Which is something that is good. For example, if someone attack your family and you retaliated, making a statement that you are not to be messed with, that is also vengeance, and that further evil conflict will be deterred by your vengeance. Isn't that a good thing, right? But why is it logical to have a world like that? And I think that is the room for improvement, that human beings can create as an extension of God.
But of course, you know, you shouldn't be arrogant. You should consider all concerns, and justice is the key, right? And through justice, it happens. Like, for example, can God move the boulder that is immovable, that He created to be immovable? Well, through justice. So if you are creating a policy, right? Just if it's just, the boulder will be moved. If it is unjust, the boulder will not be moved. So God of justice, right? And how can the universe comprehend justice? The answer is human beings, the human species, or the sentient beings like human beings, right? Because we can see like some animals felt jealousy, felt unfair, or empathy also in animals. It doesn't mean that animals cannot perceive justice, but the way human beings regulate themselves, create borders, and make decision is something that is like really, really like I understand justice because of the history of the human ingenuity in terms of laws, in terms of regulation, in terms of rule and order. For example, the history of trias politica in France, the Marie Antoinette event, where now we live with presidency and the legislative and the judges, and that is like, oh, wow, that is human beings achievement. And maybe there's a parallel to that in the physics world. Maybe but I am not aware of that, but I appreciate what we can achieve. And therefore justice the new element is the new element that is determinant of how logic is going to perpetuate throughout the future, right? Because we live in order of sequences, and the past is like we know the past. Okay, the past. If yesterday I ate rice, tomorrow doesn't suddenly change that 2 days ago I ate rice. Suddenly 2 days ago I ate noodles. No, like 2 days ago I ate rice. It doesn't change to become a noodle. All right. So, but uh, perpetuating throughout the future, the protocol will be justice. Even though now justice is really like a new spirit that is being introduced, but over time, right, with throughout technology, such protocol is going to enable even more omnipotence of love, and that is great. I think that is why maybe that I have experienced what I've experienced in the past. Maybe some people who have experienced far worse things than me, maybe I could learn from them, and not just learn from the ingenuity of music, art, and physics. Maybe I could learn how the patience and the like Dostoevsky's novel, how a prisoner in Gulag transcended. I hear this from Jordan Peterson. By the way, I haven't read Dostoevsky, but Jordan Peterson talk about Dostoevsky witnessing like a elevated or awakened prisoner, and being able to adjust a human mind's ability to adjust and find meaning in suffering, and therefore being advanced, being evolved further, being elevated even higher. And that is something that can be learned. Like Dostoevsky learned something from him. Like probably these people, like Nick Fujik, for example, maybe his words are like now 2025 is something that has been uttered over and over again, but there's a difference. You see someone who is without hands and without feet being able to accomplish such things. There is something that is intense. gravity in it that is so intense, and also people who are at the front line of limitations and at the front line of unfairness, and being able to make, how are we going to be able to make it fair, is the question. It is not easy, it is not simple, but if we can pull it off, the technology is going to be replicatable, and it's going to be useful for a lot of people. What? There's so many things, right? I forgot to talk about other things as well. Uh, about tax, AI's potential for governmental tax would be like, the desire of tax is any increase in economic potential is going to be taxed. So AI is going to be able to identify the presence of economic improvement and enable the government to tax it. So that is a concern. Now, here's the deal. I am all for giving back to the sources of solutions. I think that's how prosperity is created, and without that, we are doomed. Right? Reciprocity is how transaction in the economy works. Right? How the economy works is through reciprocity, and it is, how is it reciprocal when, like, your firefighters, your police, your army, your diplomats, who are contributing to the safety and to the scalability of the business, is not being considered as contributors of the business, right? I think that makes sense. However, prying into people's privacy, destroying other people's meaning of property for the sake of tax is insane. Like, it's like destroying money, the value of money, in order to get more money. So that is just like, what is justice? How do you create something that can be justified, that is truly just? How are you going to figure it out? And through AI, some arrogance could manifest really badly. But on the other hand, if you can kind of figure out, like, how like, even a barter transaction has these elements of contributions from the workers of the public. How are you going to figure out how to reward the contributions? The more you are able to do that, the richer the economy became. And that is the logic. And you know, money has its limitation, but it is also empowering, right? Before money, you got to do barter. Without money, you got to do barter. And with money, you can do this credit and consensus kind of thing, and can hold on to this kind of property, which is this receivables, right? Which is a technology as well, and it has a lot of potential. It is still working now, and we're still trying to maximize its potential. So please don't forget the premise of money. Don't forget about it, and that is what we are trying to do here. So that, with I hope, with everybody being able to scrutinize and being able to be reasonable, because when we see on the internet, people perpetuate the idea that, oh, AI is bad, AI is just bad, without without nuance. That is just giving more legitimacy for the people in power to say that people who are not in power are unnuanced. People who are not in power are not objective. And therefore, I have the legitimacy to go in to their property and mess things up, right? The, like, you gotta be smart. You gotta be able to be objective, and then after that, we together, all of us, we scrutinize evil, right? Even in powerful people. And I think the right way towards the future is the mesh topology, which is a centralized topology doesn't like. It's just the nature of it. It's just the nature of the momentum, because the centralized topology wants to be broken apart by the mesh topology. But I am not advocating for unjust destruction. Like, very little people want that. And just like these people who wants destruction is having a lot of publicity so that it can deface and defame the movement that is more reasonable. Like, for example, NFT and blockchain, it has a lot of spirit, a lot of good ideas behind it, but some of the things are being used for money laundering, for example, which is, like, this blockchain technology came from mesh topology, which has been invented before that. It has a spirit that has existed before that, and you want to defame the spirit of the internet through that kind of mechanism. And I think that is so old. Like, that is so status quo behavior, not innovative at all. In fact, that it's inclining more towards the destruction of innovation. There are structure in mesh, guys. There are structure that can be done through diversification. Imagine you are not diversified in your income, so you don't have multiple sources of income. If there's something bad happens to your work, you are you don't have any more money coming in. You don't have other things going on for you. So I guess it is a way to exert control, but it is not worth it. There is a way, for the entire people to be diversified, and then having the strong government as well. I know it's more likely to be like multiple government and stuff, but this consensus, this trias politica, is gonna come together, right? And that is just the logic of it. Instead of trying to stop it, why don't you embody, results? Keep on improving people's lives. And while you are in a position, just do your job well. And then after that, the manifestation of the mesh, which they're going to need some administrators to, is just going to be you, right? You're just going to be like the hero of the mesh. And that is just like you are in there, you are in that place. uh, like, embrace scrutiny, embrace audit, embrace multiple point of views, and be corrected. Like, why is it devastating for your mistakes to be exposed? I think that kind of marketing is the kind of marketing they hate. Like, PR people, public relation people, why can't you have a better way of better paradigm of creating wealth for yourself? And the insecurity of the establishment or organizations from their income, right? That is what is feeding PR. But I don't think that, like, I don't think that's the only thing, but a lot of people are going for that direction and they want to maintain it. It's like, I am a doctor, so I need diseases just to acquire income. No, you can be a biological researcher. That's why we can eradicate disease. But I think eradicating disease is very difficult, and as well as, like, but I think there are things in this world that is not diseases, right? Diseases is a thing that has been there from the beginning. But there are things that are not there from the beginning. It's not necessarily have to be carteled like that. And that is going to that is building up a momentum towards sabotage instead of building up momentum towards making things work. Making things work legitimizes you, like the government, for more taxes. And why do you want more taxes? Because you want to be able to control inflation, right? And then after that, more things that works, uh, it doesn't, it is the opposite of sabotage. So what is going on right now? I don't understand. Why is it that sabotage or status quo is being put forward? Why not the people of status quo become the embodiment of youth, right? Because they're old? No, not because they're old. Old people can be new as well if they have the renewal of the mind of Christ, right? The re, the reborn as a Christian, when you are being renewed in your spirit. If you look at, if you look at God and look at the creation of God that speaks the glory of God, you're looking at millions, billions, and googlions. I don't know what do you call it, old of order and sequences and logic and time, which makes you even younger than a zygote that we perceive to be a zygote. We are all young. We are all kids. We are all little things. We are all very, very young. And if you have that perspective and you embody that in yourself, that is not delusional. Why? Because that is the truth. Think about it. So, why are you forcing this paradigm of gatekeeping? I don't really like search friction. I don't like, guys. It is not, you know, the ideology of Christianity, why I am so compelled to it, is that the statement that is made through the resurrection of God, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, is that don't be afraid, don't be afraid with the death of your organization, the death of your country, because what comes after that is resurrection, right? So, guys, if you want your life, you got to be able to let it go. If you love somebody, you got to be able to let it go. That's that's in a way what is missing in our status quo establishment right now, like this understanding of how not to be creepy. All right, I think maybe there are a lot of heroes of war, that is when we're talking about World War II or the Cold War, are spies, right? And the spies' life is was in the shadows, so they don't get audited a lot, and they are the ones who is auditing other people, and it had been working for quite some time, and has created this peace that we are experiencing in some parts of the world, in huge parts of the world. But how do we appreciate you if you your existence itself is through avoiding attribution? I think there's got to be a point that you got to be like Putin, right? He is an ex KGB, right? And he's like, yo, how about all of you, after you achieve something, just receive the Medal of Honor. And like Andrew Bustamante, like I can't believe he's a CIA and he talks so much. And I think that is healthy, guys, because if you suppress that the world of attribution, I think that you're living in a world that is supposed to be temporary, and you're gonna propagate that temporariness to be a norm for everybody, and that is like normalizing money laundering, because how else are you going to be rewarded, right, for your action but through means of money laundering? You might say this is white lie. White money laundering is not dark money laundering. But if you run the thing more and more, people who are scrutinized, if they run with their thing more and more, they're going to receive more scrutiny, and therefore their second nature would be just justice, like right, justifiability. But if you are live in the shadow and you live that more and more, your second nature would be, I want to say demonic, but I want to say in a way that you could relate to, right? It would be things that are not, that are allergic to audit, allergic to scrutiny. And how are you going to stop that? How are you going to heal that? It it needs to be addressed, and it needs surgery. It needs massive reconstruction so that you can live again to fulfill all of your meaning, all of your nature as a human being, that you would be complete and you would not be jealous with people like, oh, these people are living in clear property while they've done nothing. And while I have become a war hero, risking my life, risking my family, not having my life anymore, not being able to, my kids, I cannot relate with them anymore. And why is it happening to me and everyone else now have to experience what I experienced? I guess not everyone's going to be like that, but that is the danger. And that is not being scrutinized. Who's going to call out for that? Who's going to say, and who's going to attribute that? Because you live in the world of that's inclination. This is just my personal opinion, okay? I'm not trying to say I can be wrong about this. People just don't judge people too quickly, but this is my concern, is that how is there already systems in place to handle that, and how's that system is not going to detriment me? How's that system is not going to involve sabotaging other people's legitimate profit to be transferred to that community? How's that going to work out? And like, let's say for example, you are a secret agent who is a Hollywood star, and all of the people perceive that you are wealthy, but you are not that wealthy. Why? Because some of the wealth is claimed by shady people, and you don't own that, and you are just frustrated every time people see you and hold you accountable as rich people. You feel like I'm not getting paid enough for this, right? So is that being propagated throughout the world? Isn't that insanity? I think I'm going to end it there. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.